Okay. Hi, Doctor. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
This is kind of an exciting thing for me. I don't think we've done one other from the kitchen, but this is definitely an unusual surrounding. And as you showed me before we got on, it is a real kitchen. It's not a Hollywood kitchen. It's all functional and working. So glad to have you here. We're going to be talking about your book, The Power Five, today. Have you published other books, or is this your first published book?
This is my third book. I've written a book called What to Eat When and the What to Eat When cookbook.
When I was a kid growing up, we had a food group pyramid that they used to put up on the wall. And has that pyramid changed in terms of which foods we're supposed to be eating?
It's changed shape a little bit. Now we have a plate instead of a pyramid. Uh, a lot of the foods are the same, but they're a little bit different, probably from the one you remember, right? What the my new book, The Power Five, is really about the five foods that you need to eat more of, which are fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, whole grains, beans, and fish. And these are the Power Five foods because these are the foods associated with living a long, healthy life. Haven't really changed over time. Nutrition advice feels like it changes, but it doesn't really. It's really pretty consistent. And the studies, and there are hundreds of them, and I've read them, so you don't have to, show that these are the foods that help prevent death from cardiovascular disease, death from diabetes. They may help prevent cancer. When you look around the world at the people who live the longest, Power Five foods are the foods that they eat the most of.
The last time I looked, it was Japan that had the longest life expectancy averagely for a country. Is that still true?
Japan is definitely number one or number two, yes.
Okay, and their diet is primarily fish and vegetables and rice. Yeah.
That's right. They eat a lot of fish. They eat a lot of grains. Okinawa is considered one of the blue zones. That's one of the places in the world where people live the longest. And I actually have met Dan Buettner, the guy who writes about the blue zones quite a few times. And I asked him one day, I said, Dan, do people in Okinawa eat mostly rice and fish? And he said, actually, you know what? The secret food for the Okinawan longevity is beans. Turns out that in all of the blue zones, places where people live the longest, beans is one of their primary sources of protein. Okinawa, of course, they also have a lot of fish, and their starch, actually, one of their favorite starches is the sweet potato.
So when you say beans, is that any kind of bean? Black bean, kidney bean, lima bean?
Yeah, all kinds of beans are great. I've got some with me here. These are lentils. These are lentils from southern Italy, actually. I have some kidney beans here in my closet. I have so many more beans. I've got chickpeas, black beans. I've got giant white beans, gigante beans. All beans are great for you. They're all a little bit different. Darker, smaller beans tend to have more antioxidants in them. The bigger beans have maybe some more fiber in them. Eating a wide variety of beans, just like eating a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, is the best thing you can do. But yeah, if you wanted to just eat one bean and that gets you to eating more beans, I'd say go for it.
Well, I like beans. I just have never gotten into cooking them and preparing them. But maybe does your book have recipes on how to make some interesting dishes with beans?
It sure does. It has a whole section on beans. So each in the book's divided up, or each of the Power Five foods has a chapter. And some of the recipes have multiple Power Five foods. So there's cool little icons to help you recognize, oh, this recipe actually has two or three of the Power Five foods. But there's a bunch of really cool bean recipes. There's one that I think is really fun. I've been talking about a lot and it's beautiful. If you see the picture, you're going to want to eat it for sure. I call it Chickpea Murphy. So I grew up in New York and in northern New Jersey. And in the area where I was growing up, there are a lot of Italian American restaurants. And they all made this dish called Chicken Murphy, which is kind of a funny dish. It's like a Italian, Irish kind of dish, right? And it had chicken and peppers and mushrooms and some crispy potatoes in a vinegary sauce. It was really delicious. I loved getting it. And it turns out that chickpeas are a really good substitute for dishes that have chicken. So I made this little twist on it where I got all that great flavor from the original, but I put chickpeas in it. So it's a really great bean dish. I've got another one in there that I really love, which is a bean parfait. Everybody loves parfait, right? And it's got beans and kind of a spicy tomato sauce, and then a layer of a nice rich yogurt, and then some nice herb breadcrumbs on top. So it's a savory parfait, but it has all these different flavors and textures that makes it really a unique and delicious thing.
Another statistic that I saw was that in America, we are 50% of the population is overweight. What are we doing wrong? What was the problem with the diet here? Too much carb and sugar?
It's actually
It's higher than that?
it's actually a little bit higher. So over 60% of Americans are overweight.
Wow.
And the problem is, I mean, we're eating too much of the things that we shouldn't eat too much of. We're not eating enough of the things that we need to eat more of. So as a rule in America and across the world, we don't eat enough of the Power Five foods, but we do eat too much sugar, too much simple flours, which basically turn into sugar, right? Simple carbohydrates. We eat too much red meat and processed meat, and not enough of these Power Five foods. The cool thing about these foods is when you eat them, you can almost eat as much as you want, almost limitless, because it's so hard to eat too much broccoli or too many carrots or too much cabbage, right? Or too big of a bowl of beans, because they come with so many nutrients and they come with so much fiber that they're really, really filling. While those other foods that we tend to overeat, they're the ones that trick our bodies into always wanting more because we never feel satisfied.
Well, one of the problems that I have, I mean, I am overweight and I've been on every diet imaginable and I haven't been very successful at losing any. But one of the problems that I have is if I've switched to a healthier diet, I never feel full. And that's all. And like you said, I mean, how much broccoli can you eat? You know, I could sit there and eat a giant bowl of broccoli, and an hour later I'd be hungry again. So how do you fill yourself so that you don't feel like you need to eat so much?
Yeah, so I think it comes from eating a combination of things. If you just eat one thing, that's boring. So when I wrote the Power Five cookbook, I didn't want to write a health book that you cook from. I wanted to write a cookbook that just happens to be healthy. And by combining the different Power Five foods, that should help make you feel full. You're getting a lot of fiber from your fruits and vegetables, in your beans. You're getting a lot of protein plus fiber. It's those combination of the nutrients that help you feel full. There's a bunch of foods that I write about in the book called alliums. So I have an awesome recipe for a leek salad. A leek is an allium. I have a bunch of recipes for artichokes. Artichokes are alliums. Alliums and other fruits and vegetables and beans, they have a certain type of fiber in them that gets digested by your gut bacteria. And the gut bacteria turn into something else, another chemical, that actually goes up to your brain and helps tell you you're full. So eating this combination of these foods, that should really help make a difference for you.
What is the worst thing that we're eating or drinking in this country? Is it diet soda? I keep hearing all kinds of horrible things about diet sodas.
Well, I think the worst things that we're doing to ourselves is consuming a lot of sugar. That often comes in the form of soda or juice or candy or cake, right? So you don't have to give those things up completely, but we definitely are over consuming them and under consuming the Power Five foods. Diet soda is complicated, right? It doesn't have actual sugar in it, but it has artificial sweeteners. And there's some data to suggest that when you have those artificial sweeteners, your body doesn't get satisfied. There's actually no nutrition, and it doesn't help you, with cravings of sugar. So you still want more sugar. You still want to eat more. It helps you cut back, but you may overcompensate because of that.
Let me ask you something about the book. Is the book primarily a cookbook, or is it a lecture type book?
It's definitely not a lecture type book. Yeah, it's really a cookbook first, and it's a health book second. It's filled with health information, But I think I'm a little biased. It's written in a really friendly way. It's really easy to read. I was actually on a trip last week going to a conference, and I was reading through the book again, and I kept turning the page because it's just really fun. It's got a little bit of humor. It's really approachable. I spent a lot of my time in my life, about over a decade, working in the media, and I understand that people don't want to have a lecture. People just want to get their information. They want to enjoy doing it. They want to eat delicious things. And so this whole book is designed to do all of that.
You did mention that you were in the media. I see on your bio you're multi-Emmy award-winning producer. What did you produce?
So I was a producer at the Dr. Oz show.
Oh,
I ran the medical unit there for 7 years. I was brought in to help try to make things better there. And so yeah, spent 7 years there running medical unit, trying to make sure what we said was right, spending a lot of time focusing on helping people eat the right stuff.
We've got just a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite recipe from the book? What's the one that you eat the most?
Yeah, that might be the hardest question you could ask me because I love every recipe in the book. I'd say it goes in phases, like because the book is very seasonal and I like to eat in a very seasonal way. Sometimes I like to eat one thing. Sometimes I like to eat another thing. Right now, we're getting into the fall here where I live. So I'm focusing more on fall types of ingredients, things like squash or kohlrabi. Kohlrabi is like a really weird looking vegetable, but it's a cross between sort of a cabbage and a broccoli. In the book, I have a recipe for a kohlrabi remoulade. It's kind of like a kohlrabi salad where it's chopped up with some other vegetables. It's really crunchy, really crispy, full of flavor. I also have a version that's great for the holidays, which is taking kohlrabi and making it into a mash, so a substitute for mashed potatoes. This is called a honey nut squash. You can eat the skin of this. It's really filled with fiber again. I like to put nut butter on it, so you get a nuts and seeds. You get a vegetable. I make that a little spicy. Again, sort of great for a fall, winter type of dish. And then all the bean dishes are really good in this time of year. So many favorites. One of my other favorites that I just stopped making is my eggplant parmesan. You wouldn't think a doctor would recommend eggplant parmesan, but my version has less salt, it has less saturated fat, it has no frying, it has no breading, and it uses less cheese because I use a nice aged cheese. So it has tons of flavor and it's delicious.
Okay. Well, I think on that, we're going to have to wind this down, Doctor. Thank you so much for coming on. The book is called The Power Five. Is it been released yet? Is it out and available?
Yes, you can get it today.
Okay, super. Thanks for coming on this show. I'm going to try one of your recipes in there, I think.
Thanks. Let me know how it goes.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.